Okay, guys, it's Tuesday, and we're gonna start topic 9. Today's date is December 12th. First thing we need to do is make sure our table of contents is updated. And in topic 9, we're gonna start on lesson 9-2, and we're gonna estimate in sums and differences of fractions. And in my notebook, I gotta find out where it's gonna start. I'm gonna start on 51. Now remember, in your notebook, it can start anywhere, wherever your last page is left off at. Okay, and I already have my topic 9 divider in my notebook. First thing I'm going to do is put the title on my page, which is going to be 9-2. Estimating sums and differences of fractions. My essential question for today is going to be, how can you estimate the sum of two fractions? And we've already talked about using benchmark fractions. We already went over it. So today when we estimate, we're going to always try to focus on using benchmark fractions. And then we're going to have a couple examples. My first example we're going to use is from the top of the book on page 206. And it's going to say, Mr. Fish is welding together two copper pipes to repair a leak. He will use the pipes shown. About how long will the welded pipes be? And the first pipe shown is 5 and 12 foot long and 1 and 6 foot long. So the first thing we need to do is choose our operation. And for this, we're going to add our fractions together. So my problem would be 1/6 plus 5/12. You write example 1 over here. But the question asks us to find about how long. And whenever we see about how long, that tells us that we can estimate. So the first thing we're going to do, and I'm going to show you an example. In my head, I can pretty much know where 1/6 falls in comparison to my benchmark fractions. And I pretty know that 5/12 is close to 1/2. But I want to draw this out on the number line so you guys can picture this. So on my number line here, I'm going to have a 0. On my number line here, I'm going to have a 1. And about halfway in between, I'm going to have 1/2. Well, I need to look at my biggest fraction. And my biggest, well, I need to, not my biggest fraction, but I need to look at my biggest denominator, which is 12. And I need to divide my number line up into 12 pieces. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 is 1/2, because 6/12 equals 1/2. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12/12 is 1, because 12/12 is a whole, so it equals 1. So if we counted this up top we would have right here would be 6/12, we'll put that in parentheses, and up here we would have 12/12, which is a whole. So the first thing we need to do is plot our two fractions. Well, my first fraction is 1/6. Well, how many twelfths is 1/6? I know that if I do 1/6 times 2 times 2, I would get 2/12. So I need to find 2/12 on my number line. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and I'm always going to put the dot right here on my number line. A nice big dot right where the numbers, where my line connects. I'm not going to put it on top. I'm not going to put it on the bottom. My dot will always be found on my number line. Right, Miss Russell?
Yes, sir.
This is one of Miss Russell's biggest pet peeves.
On the number line.
And then I'm going to label this 1/6. Okay? Now my next fraction is 5/12. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to label that, put my big dot, and I'm going to label that 5/12. So once I have my number line, and I have everything plotted, and I look at it, I need to determine where everything falls in respect to my benchmark fractions, which is 0, 1/2, or 1. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at 1/6. Is 1/6 closer to 0 or 1/2? Well, on my number line, 1/6 is closer to 0. So I'm going to write 0. And we could write 0 over 0 if that helps you guys. Or we could just write 0 plus, does 5/12 fall closest to 0 or 1/2? Well, 5/12 is almost 1/2. So when I write this out, and I'm going to use the squirmy little lines for my equal sign. And what those squirmy little lines mean is and it's an estimation. It's about. So what is 1/6 plus 5/12? It's about half. So now let's look at let's go ahead. I think you guys understand this. So let's go ahead and look at guided practice. And guided practice is going to be on page 206. And you guys are going to be responsible for doing 1 through 9 odd. So I'm going to go over number 2 and number 5 with you guys. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read my directions. The directions are, for number 2, for 1 through 3, use a number line to tell if each fraction is closest to 0, 1/2, or 1. So my fraction for number 2 is 2/5. So in my mind, I need to try to figure out, well, what is half of 5? Well, half of 5 is 2 5/10, or 2.5. Is 2/5 pretty close to 2.5? Yes. If I drew this out on my number line, would this fall closer to 1/2 or 0? This would fall closer to 1/2. So I need to go ahead and say this is about 1/2. Guys, if that is the directions, that's all you have to do. We're done with number 2. So please read the directions, because when you get to independent practice, you're going to have different directions for different numbers. Some are going to ask different things, okay? Next one I'm going to go over with you guys is number 4. No, actually, I'm going to do number 6, because number 6 is a subtraction problem. So number 6 is 2/3 minus 1/8. So I need to figure out on my number line what's going on. So 2/3 is an interesting one. Is it closer to 1/2 or 1? I say it's closer to 1/2. If I have a circle and I divide that into 3, I haven't done this in a while, 3 equal parts, and I shade in 2/3 of it, and then I divide that circle in half, it's closer to 1/2 being shaded in than a whole being shaded in. Do we see that? So I need to write 1/2. And if it helps you to draw a picture like that, or draw a number line, or draw a pan of brownies, however you need to model that in your mind or on your paper, then go ahead and do that. Now, is 1/8 closer to 1/2 or 0? 1/8 is closer to 0. So 1/2 minus 0 is about, well, 1/2 minus 0 is 1/2. But your final answer of 2/3 minus 1/8 is about 1/2. Okay? How are we feeling about this, guys? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Would you like me to do another example, or would you like to try some on your own? Okay. So we need to make sure in the next 20 minutes, by 9:10, everybody should have their guided practice checked. So I'm going to set a timer on the board, because one of the issues we had yesterday was you guys didn't take enough time in your test. Okay? And if you're tuning in, you guys have 30 minutes from the start of your video to copy the notes and finish guided practice. And that's going to be the new standard every day. It's 30 minutes to do notes and guided practice before it needs to be checked. Alright guys, have a great day.